What's up, peeps? Julian Williams here with the distance video for you guys this afternoon. This one is a fantasy match between Gerry Cooney and Tyson Fury. I was asked to do this one by Future Jab on Twitter. So what I said was I was going to do this one on video rather than trying to explain it in 140 characters. So I think who was in this one? I think EBN was on it, Calix was on it, and Uncle Chuck was on it. And I think I only was able to see Chuck's. I didn't see everybody else. So anyway, let's get into this one. This one is actually it started because there was a picture that surfaced. It was Gerry Cooney and Tyson Fury. To me, in a way, I mean, you can't really fully evaluate this fight because, Tyson Fury's like 25. We don't know if he's peaked yet. He hasn't really, we don't know so far if he's accomplished everything he's going to accomplish within his career. However, on the other hand, we have Gerry Cooney, a fighter who, he had some decent fights. Of course, he had the iconic fight with Larry Holmes back in the 80s, and then he fought Michael Spinks and George Foreman. But prior to that, he was the 80s version of the Great White Hope, of course. And no racial stereotype or anything. He was basically the Great White Hope. Gerry Cooney came in, he faced, in 1980, I know he faced Ron Lyle and Jimmy Young. Both of them way past their prime. Ron Lyle 5 years removed from the iconic bout with George Foreman. Jimmy Young, about 2 years removed from the upset over George Foreman in Puerto Rico. Ken Norton, who was past his prime for quite some time. His best performances, the Ali trilogy, the fight where he smashed Bobbitt, the Quarry fight, all those fights were just way behind him. So right here we're evaluating a full career versus a career that hasn't peaked yet. But what we can see with both fighters, of course, with Gerry Cooney, Gerry Cooney was more, I would say, as far as the technique is concerned, he's much better from a standpoint of technique. Tyson Fury is still working on that. Well, this dude Benita's smiling pretty big right there, but from a technique standpoint, of course, Gerry Cooney has him beat. His punches are sharper and more solid. However, on the contrary, Gerry Cooney's punch, the only punch that Gerry Cooney could throw properly was the left hook. On occasion, he'll throw the straight right hand. He'll throw it, almost perfectly. But he seemed to throw when he was stepping forward and he was trying to walk his opponents down, he would get to a point to where he's not throwing the punches properly. You have to get him, he has to get you in that right spot. However, on the other hand, Tyson Fury, he doesn't necessarily have to get you in the right spot. He just, with him, he just has to touch you. He has to touch you, but but he doesn't set up his shots as well as Cooney did. Cooney had an okay jab. He knew how to set his left hook up, and Fury still, like I said, still in the building process of his career. He's still learning that. But with the smaller, I believe that Cooney is shorter. He has a shorter reach. And I think that Cooney would probably have more of a chance of catching Fury between his shots. because Fury's shots could come a bit wide, and also he could telegraph his shots from time to time because he's. And the reason I'm saying that is because sometimes he'll step into a shot and you know what he's about to throw because of how he dips his shoulder or how he might turn his body. You know sometimes how that he could be a bit on the predictable end. So I would say Gerry Cooney wouldn't have issues going in there and landing. But on the other hand, I think that what Tyson Fury would actually have to do with Gerry Cooney is try to establish his jab and keep him on the outside and catch him at the end of something. Because Cooney's defense wasn't the best neither. You know, both of them can be hit. But like I said, Cooney threw the sharper punches. Fury, I think, he throws the stronger punches, maybe throws the stronger punches. Because like I said, he could catch you at the end of something, and it can knock you out. But at the same time, when you put Tyson Fury in the 80s, put him in there against the older Ron Lyle, put him in there against Jimmy Young, an older Jimmy Young and an older Ken Norton, he would more than likely have the same results as well, which makes this a difficult fight. I mean, both of them would lose to Larry Holmes. Both of them would lose to Larry Holmes. Both of them would more than likely lose to Michael Spinks, of course, and I think both of them would lose to a older George Foreman, which makes this a very interesting fight to take a look into. So I'm kind of back and forth, like I usually do in my videos. I'm doing this at the top of my head. And I'm thinking because, that's just how I do fantasy matchups. I do it at the top of the head and go from there. But to be honest with you, I would actually give Gerry Cooney the slight edge. And that's depending on location, size of the ring, and things of that nature. Because in Britain, there's a coagulant that's used in the United States that they don't allow in the UK. So that comes down to cuts. If one of the fighters whoever gets cut first is in trouble because they both are going to emphasize more on the cut. When they smell blood. So of course, size of the ring, location. If it's in the UK, like I said, there's coagulant that you can use there's a coagulant that you can use in the United States and not allowed in the UK. If it's a shorter ring, then Tyson Fury doesn't have to chase after Cooney. Cooney doesn't have to chase after Tyson Fury. So that's automatically going to make it a fight to where they both are forced to go in and fight each other. So it's like I said, it's very interesting. When you look at all the facts, Cooney's tall, has a long reach. Fury's tall and has a long reach. But when I think about this fight, of course, Cooney, like I said before, Cooney's had a career that you can evaluate. Fury hasn't had that just yet. But I honestly think that Gerry Cooney would actually win this fight on cuts. Also, another thing about Tyson Fury is he can expose his chin from time to time. He'll expose his chin from time to time, which makes it a bit easier for Gerry Cooney. When you expose your chin, you're just making your opponents fight easier. You're doing the job for them in a way. Nice. That was beautiful. Edwin Rosario, that's the man right there. But anyway, like I said, I gotta go with Gerry Cooney in this one, just due to it's subtle differences for me. It's subtle differences that makes me believe that Cooney will win in this fight at this point. From what we've seen of Tyson Fury. So anyway, peeps, let me know what you think. That was The Distance. Thanks for watching. I'm out of here.